Okay, so in the post-credit scene, we see Peter Parker, Spider-Man, in a sticky situation. He's hanging out on the lamppost, just said bye to his girl, and then all of a sudden, on the big screen, in the middle of New York City, we see J. Jonah Jameson, and his identity is revealed, and he just goes, "What the?" Right?
Yeah,
it was a great.
Was that a good
yeah.
premise?
It's gonna be great.
Did I sum it up
That was
right?
good. You got
Okay,
it.
It's
okay.
gonna be great to
yeah.
see how in the third
Yeah.
Spider-Man movie they figure out how to end it with somebody going, "What the?"
Yeah, exactly, right? But so what do we think about this WTF moment here? Like, what's gonna happen with Peter Parker moving from here?
I don't know. It's going to be weird to see how he gets out of this one, right? Like, it seems like he's in a sticky situation, like you said. So, yeah, there's a comics history of his identity being revealed. And this is the thing that's interesting, too, about the MCU, is there's not a lot of concern about secret identities in the MCU.
Yeah, because I mean,
right?
Captain America's out. Tony Stark. He came out and said, "Hey, I'm Iron Man."
Right,
Yeah.
right. Which was a really cool bit of symmetry in sort of thinking about Far From Home as putting an end cap on the Infinity Saga. It all started with Tony Stark saying, "I am Iron Man," and then now it's sort of wrapping up with Peter Parker sort of unwillingly having his identity revealed.
Yeah.
So, there's the comics version of it where it's like he makes a deal with Mephisto at some point along the way. I don't think that had anything to do with his identity, but then there's also Doctor Strange and Tony Stark and Reed Richards help him do some gigantic magic spells so that everybody forgets.
Yeah.
I don't think we're going that way. It seems like we're going in more of a direction of because J. Jonah Jameson has always been pretty adversarial with Peter Parker more often than not, right?
Yeah.
So he's hates that. I'm gonna get a picture of that web slinger, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
So leaning into that and having him kind of be on the run is going to be interesting moving forward for him.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to go in the supernatural route because when we knew that Mysterio was going to be, the bad guy in this movie, I was like, oh, that's awesome because Mysterio in a comic book series called Spider-Man opens up a portal to another dimension, and that brings in Miles Morales. I thought we were going to get that, but then when the movie comes out, and then it's revealed that he's just using illusion tech. Or whatever, hologram tech, whatever. It's like, so he doesn't really have any magic or powers to open up a portal, so that's probably not going to happen.
Yeah.
So, I think whatever they do, it's going to be a practical solution, not a supernatural one or a big science experiment or something like that. Yeah.
Well, I talked in some of our earlier conversations that the one thing I've really enjoyed about the Tom Holland movies is that we see Peter Parker struggling with being Spider-Man. It's sometimes he's loving it, and he really enjoyed having Tony Stark as a mentor, but Tony's gone and he feels lost, and we really see him kind of dealing with that in Far From Home. In the movie that's upcoming, I believe he's just going to continue that journey. I mean, you could see in Far From Home, he's just still uncomfortable with himself. When all the reporters were trying to speak with him, he just is like, I'm out of here, okay, I don't want to deal with this. He's just struggling with his identity. Yes, 100%. And now it's like, okay, first he was a kid and he was struggling with being a superhero. And now, in addition to that, he has to struggle with all these people knowing who he is and being portrayed really badly, you know? So it's just adding complexity and layers to already a great story. So I'm excited.
Well, it's also interesting too because it sort of retroactively makes Mysterio a more interesting villain. Right?
His
legacy lives on in a way.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes.
Because he's such he's so into misdirection and the perception, that it's fake news, right? And so he's the fact that now he's dropped that bombshell on Peter Parker, that he's going to have to deal with that from here on out, essentially. It makes Mysterio that much more of an effective villain, which I don't know. It's hard to tell if I'm so jaded that I was just there's no way he's actually a good guy this whole time. But that turn did nothing for me. I guess I was just sort of waiting on him, how they were going to reveal what kind of bad guy is he actually, and so to then drop this on Spider-Man at the end of the movie, I thought I was much more impressed with Mysterio as a villain.
100% agree. Yes.
And I think like you said, his legacy is going to live on a little bit.
Yeah. I'm actually happy you brought that up because I felt that Jake Gyllenhaal's an exceptional actor, and when he was on screen, he was electric. But his whole backstory and just kind of what played out in the movie just left me wanting a lot more. But then when they dropped that bomb in the post-credits scene, I was like, okay. Yeah. You know what I mean? I was like, okay, he was villain worthy in my opinion. I was like, okay, he stood his ground. He's up there for me. So
yeah,
sorry,
no. I mean, it's, again, going back to we're talking about the contract and things like that with Tom Holland only having one more Spider-Man movie left. I mean, hopefully he'll re-up and sign for more. But yeah, it makes you think of like, is the next one just going to end his arc, or is it going to spawn a new story? Because we've heard rumors about Venom coming in, Venom joins. I mean,
Love
if he
that.
teams up with Venom, because I mean, there's all these possibilities because he is still owned by Sony.
Yeah.
You know, the rights are still with Sony, even though they partner with Marvel on these releases. So they can still pull in from that Sony universe too and bring in Tom Hardy and those guys. So there's a lot of potential. So maybe he goes rogue for a little while and works with Tom. I mean, who knows what's going to happen? But they can go a lot of places now.
Or maybe he
exciting.
just
I love
disappears
that.
until they figure out Tom Holland's contract.
Yeah.
Spider-Man goes
no
underground.
Spider-Man
right?
movies for a while.
No,
Yeah,
I
we're done.
am glad you mentioned
Yeah.
that too, because like the idea of that bombshell setting up potentially the end of Tom Holland's run
Yeah.
as Spider-Man, like that's totally a possibility too. I think and if you look at the other villains that Spider-Man, like one of the cool things I think MCU has always done is they haven't immediately leaned into the most famous of all the comic book
Yeah.
villains for each of the heroes, right? But I think they do have a real opportunity to bring in Norman Osborn and the Green Goblin based on this, because if you have Spider-Man on the run like this and everybody's thinking that he's actually a bad guy, and then you have this industrialist sort of faux Tony Stark sort of showing up in Norman Osborn, like being able to manipulate the media as well and manipulate perception as well, like that could be another really good villain for him in the next Spider-Man 3. So
Can they bring back Willem Dafoe?
God, if they can bring back J.K. Simmons, surely they can
It's
bring back
possible.
Willem Dafoe.
There's a lot of good parts of the Sam Raimi trilogy that, I mean, you know, the third one.
Yes.
But I mean, you know, I love Doc Ock. And of course, I mean, there's some great moments from those series that I hope. It's tough. There's been so many Spider-Men over the last few years. We've had a lot, you know.
Yeah, hard to keep track.
It's hard to keep track of them. But I think Tom Holland's doing a great job, and I'm excited to see where his story goes.
Okay, so how do you think Spider-Man's going to get out of this one? Tell us in the comments section. And do not forget to check out our other videos, the Spider-Man movies ranked, and our Spider-Man Far From Home ending explained. And as always, be sure to follow and subscribe to IGN wherever you like to watch.